I stood in my small kitchen in Miami, the chef's knife in my hand falling onto the cutting board in a steady rhythm, slicing the crisp red onions into uniform, thin pieces. The evening sun streamed in through the window, casting a warm, golden glow on the granite countertop that Sophia had insisted on when they renovated. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of the knife hitting the board was especially clear in the quiet kitchen. 3 years ago, after Roberto passed away, I moved in with my son Carlos. Miguel had just turned 5, and Sophia's maternity leave was ending. She had to go back to her marketing job, and they really needed someone to help around the house. I still remember what Carlos said when he came to pick me up from my empty house in Coral Gables. "Mommy, we don't feel right with you living all alone in that big house. Come live with us. You can help look after Miguel too." That phrase, "help look after Miguel too," sounded a bit sharp at the time, but I didn't let it bother me. My grandson needed me. That was enough. I put the sliced onions into the hot olive oil and took 2 ripe tomatoes out of the refrigerator. Carlos always loved the black beans and rice I used to make. As a child, he could eat 2 huge helpings in a single sitting, always asking for more sofrito, more of that perfect blend of onions, garlic, and tomatoes that made everything taste like home. Thinking of my son, the corners of my mouth turned up in a smile. Even though he was now a successful marketing director at one of Miami's biggest advertising agencies, in my eyes, he would always be that chubby little boy with 2 dimples when he smiled, the one who would sneak into the kitchen to steal tastes of whatever I was cooking. "Abuela, abuela!" A tender, childish voice called from the living room, accompanied by the pitter-patter of tiny feet running across the marble floors. My little Miguel ran into the kitchen and threw his arms around my leg. At 8 years old, he was getting tall, but he still fit perfectly against my side when he hugged me like this. "Whoa there, mi tesoro. Slow down," I said, quickly putting down the knife, wiping my hands on the kitchen towel, and bending down to pick him up. 8-year-old Miguel was heavy in my arms now, but I didn't mind. These moments of pure affection were becoming more precious as he grew older. His round eyes were just like his father's when Carlos was a boy, dark brown with those impossibly long lashes that Roberto used to say were wasted on males in our family. "Abuela, look." Miguel held up a colorful drawing covered in a few crooked lines and shapes that only made sense to a child's imagination. "What is this, mi amor?" I asked, pretending to examine it with the seriousness of a museum curator. "Let Abuela guess," I said, squinting at the paper and tapping my chin thoughtfully. "Is it a restaurant?" "No," Miguel giggled, the sound like pure joy in the quiet kitchen. "A fancy dinner, then?" "No." More giggles, his whole body shaking with laughter. "I know, it's a big celebration." "Yes." Miguel's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "How did you know, Abuela?" "Because Abuela is very smart," I said, kissing his little cheek that still smelled like the strawberry shampoo I used during his bath time. "You drew it so well. How about we show it to Papi when he gets home?" "When is Papi coming home?" Miguel asked, and I could hear the longing in his voice. Carlos had been working late every night for the past month, preparing for some big presentation that would change everything for their family. I looked up at the clock on the wall, the expensive one Sophia had bought from some designer store. It was already 5:30. Soon, Papi's on his way home from work. Just as I said that, my phone started ringing from where I'd left it on the counter. The caller ID showed Carlos, and my heart lifted with hope. Maybe he was coming home early for once. Maybe we could have dinner together as a family. Miguel slipped out of my arms, and I answered the phone. "Mommy!" Carlos's voice practically vibrated with excitement through the speaker, so loud that Miguel could hear it too. "You're not going to believe this. I just got the promotion, creative director of the entire agency, the biggest promotion of my entire career. We're talking a 6-figure salary increase, Mommy." My heart swelled with pride so intense it almost hurt. For 3 weeks, I had been staying up until midnight, helping him organize his presentation for the board, practicing his pitch with him until my voice was hoarse. I had researched successful campaigns online, staying up until my eyes burned from staring at the computer screen. I had even used my own savings, money from Roberto's life insurance that I had been carefully preserving, to buy Carlos a new designer suit for the meeting. "Carlos, mi amor, that's incredible," I said, bouncing Miguel on my hip as he tried to grab the phone. "Your papi would be so proud. All that hard work finally paid off. I know, right? Listen, Mommy, I'm taking the whole family out to celebrate. Le Bernardin. You know, that fancy French place downtown. The one with the Michelin stars. We're going to do this right." I felt a flutter of excitement in my chest, like butterflies taking flight. Le Bernardin? I had never been to such an expensive restaurant in my entire life. After Roberto died, I had dreamed of experiencing fine dining, of being treated like someone special for once. This could be perfect. A family celebration where I was actually included, where I could share in Carlos's success that I had helped him achieve. "How wonderful," I said, already mentally planning what to wear. "What time should I be ready? Should I dress up? I have that navy dress I wore to Miguel's school graduation." There was a pause. A pause that lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. In that silence, I could hear my heart beating, could hear Miguel's breathing, could hear the black beans bubbling on the stove, could hear the air conditioning humming. Something cold and heavy settled in my stomach. "Oh, Mommy." Carlos's voice changed completely, became careful and measured, like he was talking to a child who needed to be let down gently. "This is really more of a business celebration. Sophia's parents are coming, and some colleagues from work. The reservation is pretty exclusive, and with well, you know how you get nervous in fancy places." I had never been nervous in fancy places. Roberto and I used to save up for special occasions and dress up for nice restaurants. I knew how to use proper silverware, how to order wine, how to behave in elegant settings. "But Carlos," I started, my voice smaller than I intended, "I helped you prepare for this presentation. I thought we were celebrating together as a family." "Mommy, don't worry about dinner tonight. There's leftover pizza in the fridge from yesterday, and we'll celebrate properly this weekend, okay? Maybe we'll order Chinese food and watch a movie." Leftover pizza while they ate lobster and champagne. A movie at home while they celebrated at the most expensive restaurant in the city. "Carlos, I don't understand." "I've got to run, Mommy. The reservation is at 7 and I still need to pick up Sophia's parents." "Love you." The line went dead. I stood there in my kitchen, phone in hand, staring at the black beans bubbling on the stove. The same black beans I had been making for Carlos since he was Miguel's age. The same recipe Roberto had taught me when we were newlyweds in Cuba, before we came to America with nothing but hope, determination, and this family recipe that had fed us through good times and bad. Miguel tugged at my apron with his small hands. "Abuela, why do you look sad? Are you crying?" I realized there were tears on my cheeks. I wiped them away quickly with the back of my hand and forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face. "Abuela's not sad, mi amor. Just thinking about something." But that wasn't even the worst part of this story. Because while I was standing there, processing the fact that my only son had just uninvited me from his celebration, a celebration for a success I had helped him achieve with my time, my energy, my money, and my love, my daughter-in-law Sophia was already posting photos on Instagram from Le Bernardin's champagne bar. They were already there, which meant they had never intended to invite me at all. I walked to the living room on unsteady legs and sat heavily in Roberto's old recliner, the brown leather one that Carlos kept saying he was going to replace because it didn't match Sophia's modern white and gray decor. My hands were shaking as I unlocked my phone and opened Instagram. There it was, Sophia's latest story, posted just 22 minutes ago. The image showed an elegant restaurant interior with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. Sophia had tagged the location, Le Bernardin, Miami, with a champagne glass emoji and a crown emoji. My blood ran cold. They were already there, already seated, already celebrating, without me. I scrolled through Sophia's previous posts from today with growing horror and disbelief. There was one from this afternoon showing Sophia getting her hair done at an expensive salon, a salon I had never seen before. Another from their bedroom, with Sophia in a stunning black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. The caption read, "Getting ready to celebrate my amazing husband's incredible success. So proud of you, baby. Blessed Dabhas promotion, celebration, sa fancy dinner. My amazing husband's incredible success." What about the woman who had helped him prepare? What about the mother who had sacrificed her own comfort, her own money, her own dreams to support his career? My phone buzzed with a text message notification. It was from Sophia. "Mom, there's some leftover pizza in the fridge from yesterday. Cold but still good. Eat it before it goes bad. We'll be back late tonight. Don't wait up. P.S. Miguel is at my parents' house for a sleepover, so you have the night to yourself. Lucky you." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before the full impact hit me like a physical blow. They had planned this entire evening without me. Not only was I not invited to the celebration dinner, but they had arranged for Miguel to be elsewhere, so I would be completely alone in the house while they lived it up at the most expensive restaurant in Miami. I walked to the refrigerator like I was moving through thick water. There, on the middle shelf, was a pizza box from Tony's Pizza down the street. I opened it, and there were 3 cold, congealed slices of pepperoni pizza that looked like they had been sitting there for at least 2 days. This was my dinner. While my family was about to dine on lobster thermidor and Dom Perignon at a Michelin-starred restaurant, I was supposed to eat cold, stale pizza that they couldn't be bothered to throw away. I looked at my phone again. Sophia had just posted another story. This time, it was a video of the family walking into Le Bernardin. Carlos was wearing the designer suit I had bought him with my own money, looking handsome and successful and confident. Sophia was in that stunning black dress, her hair perfectly styled in an elegant updo. Sophia's parents were there too, dressed to the nines and beaming with pride. The video panned to show the restaurant's opulent interior, while Sophia's voice narrated over the footage. "This place is absolutely incredible. Carlos deserves this after working so hard for this promotion. We're going to have the most amazing evening celebrating our success." Our success. What about the woman who had helped him prepare every single day for 3 weeks? What about the mother who had believed in him when he doubted himself? I typed back to Sophia's message with trembling fingers. "Okay." But as I hit send, something inside me broke. Not just cracked, completely shattered into 1,000 pieces. You see, I had been the one to help Carlos prepare for that presentation. For 3 weeks, I had researched successful advertising campaigns online, staying up until my eyes burned from staring at the computer screen. I had helped him create mood boards and strategy documents, even learned to use design software so I could help him visualize his ideas. I had role-played difficult questions from the board, pretending to be skeptical executives while Carlos practiced his responses until he could handle anything they threw at him. When he was stressed about the meeting, I had made him chamomile tea with honey and rubbed his shoulders while he practiced his pitch. I had listened to him rehearse the same presentation dozens of times, offering suggestions and encouragement, never once complaining about the repetition. "You're my secret weapon, Mommy," he had said just yesterday, kissing my cheek after another practice session. "I couldn't do this without you." Apparently, he could celebrate without me just fine. I closed the pizza box and set it on the counter. The smell of cold grease lingered in the air, mixing with the aroma of the black beans I had been cooking for a family that was no longer here, that had never really included me in the first place. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3 years of living in Carlos and Sophia's house. I went to my room, the small guest room with no windows and a broken air conditioning unit that Carlos kept promising to fix but never did, and pulled out the suitcase I had brought when I moved in after Roberto died. But what I packed in that suitcase wasn't just clothes. It was evidence. Let me take you back 6 months to show you exactly how I became invisible in my own family. It was 5 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in September. I was in the kitchen, moving quietly through the pre-dawn darkness so I wouldn't wake anyone. I had learned their routines by heart over the past 2.5 years, had memorized every preference, every quirk, every demand. Carlos liked his coffee, strong and black, with exactly 2 pieces of whole wheat toast, no butter, just a thin layer of sugar-free strawberry jam because Sophia had him on a strict diet to keep his cholesterol down. Sophia preferred green tea and Greek yogurt with organic berries that cost $8 a container at Whole Foods. Miguel needed his cereal in the blue bowl with the cartoon characters. Any other bowl would result in tears and a 20-minute tantrum that would make everyone late. I moved through the kitchen like a ghost, preparing everything just the way they liked it. This had become my life over the past 3 years. Wake up before dawn, prepare breakfast, pack lunches, get Miguel ready for school, clean the house, do the laundry, prepare dinner, help with homework, give baths, read bedtime stories, and then collapse into bed only to wake up and do it all again. I was a full-time housekeeper, nanny, cook, personal assistant, and chauffeur. Except I wasn't paid. I was family. Carlos rushed into the kitchen at exactly 7:15, like clockwork. He grabbed his coffee and the lunch I had prepared, a gourmet sandwich with the roast beef I had made the night before, his favorite artisanal chips, and a homemade tres leches cake for dessert that had taken me 3 hours to make. "Thanks, Mommy. You're the best," he said, kissing my cheek before rushing out to his black BMW that Sophia had insisted they lease because image matters in advertising. Sophia appeared exactly 10 minutes later, checking her phone while she grabbed her tea and yogurt. She was already dressed in a designer outfit that cost more than I spent on clothes in an entire year, a cream-colored blazer and matching pants that she had bought for client presentations. "Mom, can you pick up Miguel from soccer practice today? I have a client meeting that might run late." "Of course, mi amor." "Oh, and we're having the Hendersons over Saturday for dinner. Can you make that paella they loved last time? The one with the saffron?" I nodded, already mentally planning the shopping list. Real saffron cost $40 an ounce, but I would use my own money, as I always did for special occasions when they wanted to impress their friends. "Perfect. We'll eat around 7. You can serve dinner and then, give us some space to talk business." I understood perfectly. I would cook for the party, serve the guests like hired help, clean up afterward, and then disappear to my room so they could enjoy their evening without the embarrassment of having the live-in grandmother hovering around. This had become my life. Cook, clean, babysit, disappear. But I had been documenting everything. I opened my laptop, the old one Roberto had bought me 5 years ago, which Carlos kept saying he would replace, but never did, and scrolled through months of screenshots I had been taking. Sophia's Instagram posts from expensive restaurants I was never invited to. Family outings to South Beach where I stayed home to watch the house and keep an eye on things. Miguel's birthday party at Dave & Buster's where I had organized the entire event, bought most of the presents, and made the cake, but wasn't in a single photo because I was too busy serving food and cleaning up. I opened my banking app and reviewed my account with growing anger and disbelief. Over the past year, I had loaned Carlos and Sophia $28,000 for various emergencies that never seemed to be actual emergencies. The down payment for Sophia's new BMW when her lease was up. "Just until my bonus comes in," Sophia had said. That was 8 months ago, and the bonus had come and gone without any mention of repayment. Carlos's dental work when he wanted veneers for professional appearances. The veneers were purely cosmetic. His teeth were perfectly healthy, but he wanted them to look perfect for client meetings. Miguel's private school tuition when they were temporarily short on cash. Temporarily had lasted 6 months, and I was still paying the monthly installments. Sophia's designer wardrobe that she absolutely needed for work. The clothes cost $5,000, and she wore most of them once. None of it had been repaid. When I mentioned it once, very gently, Carlos had looked at me like I had said something deeply offensive. "Mommy, we're family. We don't keep track of money between family." Apparently, they didn't keep track of inclusion between family either. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos with the methodical precision of someone building a legal case. The cold, stale pizza that smelled like cardboard and grease. The Instagram posts showing my family living their best life without me. The text message from Sophia treating me like a house sitter rather than a family member. I photographed my room, the cramped space with its single bed, the broken air conditioner that made the room stifling in Miami's oppressive heat, the lack of windows that made it feel like a prison cell. The room where I had been sleeping for 3 years, grateful just to have a roof over my head. I uploaded everything to a cloud storage account and sent the link to my sister Carmen in Tampa. Just in case something happens to me, I wrote in the email. I want someone to know the truth about how they treat me. Then I did something that would prove crucial later. I walked through the house, photographing everything that told the story of my invisibility. In the living room, I focused on the mantel above the fireplace. There were dozens of family photos displayed in expensive silver frames that Sophia had bought to create a cohesive aesthetic. Carlos and Sophia's wedding, where I had been relegated to a corner table with distant relatives I had never met. Miguel's school pictures from kindergarten through 2nd grade, each one professionally taken and expensively framed. Carlos's college graduation, where I had been so proud I had cried through the entire ceremony. But as I looked closer, I realized something that made my stomach drop like a stone. Not a single photo included me. In every family portrait, every holiday picture, every milestone moment, I had been cropped out, left out, or simply not invited to be in the frame in the first place. I was invisible in my own family's history. But there was something else on Sophia's desk in the home office that made my blood boil with rage. A stack of restaurant receipts and reservation confirmations, carelessly left out where anyone could see them. I took a photo of the Le Bernardin reservation, and what I saw made my hands shake with fury. The reservation had been made 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before Carlos had even given his presentation to the board. They had planned this celebration dinner before they knew if he would get the promotion, which meant they had always intended to leave me behind. But that wasn't the worst part. The credit card used for the reservation was one I recognized. It was the emergency card Carlos had asked me to co-sign for, just in case something happens and we need quick access to funds. They had used my credit, my financial responsibility, to pay for a dinner they didn't invite me to. I sat on my bed, surrounded by my packed belongings, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: rage. Not the quiet frustration I had been swallowing for 3 years. Not the disappointment I had learned to accept as normal. Pure, clean, righteous rage that burned through my veins like fire. For 3 years, I had been invisible in my own son's house. A ghost who cooked and cleaned and babysat, but was never included in the family she had sacrificed everything for. I had given up my house in Coral Gables, the house Roberto and I had bought when Carlos was just a baby. I had given up my independence, my social life, my dignity. I had become a servant in exchange for the promise of being close to my family. But I wasn't close to them. I was convenient to them. There's a difference. I picked up my phone and made the first call. Rodriguez Locksmith? Yes, I need all the locks changed on a house. Tonight. It's an emergency. The locksmith, Mr. Rodriguez, sounded concerned. Ma'am, it's pretty late. Are you in danger? Should I call the police? No, I said, my voice steadier than I had felt in years. I'm not in danger. I'm taking control. The second call was to a moving company. I need a truck first thing tomorrow morning. I'm moving out, and I need to take everything that belongs to me. The third call was to my lawyer, Mrs. Hernandez, who had handled Roberto's estate. Mrs. Hernandez, it's Margaret Torres. I know it's late, but I need to discuss elder financial abuse and emotional neglect, and I need to know my rights regarding unauthorized use of my credit. Mrs. Hernandez's voice immediately became serious and professional. Margaret, are you safe? Do you need immediate assistance? I'm safe, I said, but I need justice. The fourth call was the most important one. Hello, Sunset Gardens Senior Community? I know it's late, but do you have any emergency availability? I need a place to stay tonight. By the time Carlos and Sophia returned from their celebration dinner, I would be gone. But what they would find in my place would be something that would change their lives forever. While I was making these calls, my phone kept buzzing with notifications. Sophia was documenting every moment of their luxury dinner on social media, and I watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as my family's perfect celebration unfolded on my screen in real time. There was Sophia posing with a glass of champagne that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The caption read, "Celebrating my incredible husband's amazing promotion. So proud of this man. Blessed sour success. Celebration, sour champagne." Another post showed their appetizer course. Oysters Rockefeller arranged artistically on a silver platter. When you're celebrating success, you do it right. Luxury, dining chaff oysters, or living our best life. Then came the main course. Carlos was cutting into what looked like lobster thermidor while Sophia's parents raised their glasses in a toast. The caption read, "To Carlos and his incredible achievement, so grateful to celebrate with the people who matter most. Han family time, Han lobster, Han success, Han grateful, the people who matter most." I stared at that phrase until my eyes burned with tears of rage and hurt. But I noticed something in the photos that made me look closer. In the background of one image, I could see other diners staring at their table with annoyed expressions. In another, Carlos looked uncomfortable, constantly checking his phone with a worried expression that didn't match the celebratory atmosphere. The comments on Sophia's posts were starting to tell a different story than her carefully crafted captions. "Wow, expensive celebration. Hope you can afford all this. Where's Carlos's mom? Doesn't she live with you guys?" This seems a bit over the top for a work promotion. Beautiful dinner, but something seems off in these photos. I scrolled through more posts with growing satisfaction. There was one from an hour ago showing the family with Sophia's parents, all of them holding cocktails. Carlos looked tired and stressed. Sophia was clearly getting drunk, and her parents looked uncomfortable with how much money was being spent. Sophia had captioned it, "Nothing but the best for our celebration. Carlos deserves everything. Our cocktails, our celebration, our family, our success." But I knew Carlos better than anyone. He wasn't comfortable with extravagant displays of wealth. He was probably calculating how much this dinner was costing and worrying about the credit card bill. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. Because I realized something important. They needed me more than I needed them. I had been so focused on being grateful for their generosity in letting me live with them that I had forgotten my own worth. I wasn't a burden they were graciously carrying. I was the foundation that held their comfortable lives together. Without me, Carlos couldn't work late because he would have to pick up Miguel from school. Without me, Sophia couldn't have her client meetings because she would have to cook dinner and help with homework. Without me, they would have to pay for childcare, housekeeping, cooking, and all the other services I provided for free. I had been thinking about this all wrong. I wasn't dependent on them. They were dependent on me, and it was time they learned that lesson. I opened my laptop and started typing with the fury of someone who had been silent for too long. A detailed breakdown of everything I had done for them over the past 3 years. Every meal cooked, every hour of babysitting, every load of laundry, every grocery shopping trip, every school pickup, every bedtime story, every homework session, every scraped knee kissed better. I researched the going rates for housekeepers, nannies, personal chefs, and personal assistants in Miami. The numbers were staggering. Housekeeper, $25 per hour, 40 hours per week. Nanny, $20 per hour, 30 hours per week. Personal chef, $35 per hour, 10 hours per week. Personal assistant, $18 per hour, 15 hours per week. Total weekly cost, $2,320. Total monthly cost, $9,280. Total for 3 years, $334,080, but I had been conservative in my calculations. I had been working more than 95 hours per week, every week, for 3 years. No days off, no vacation time, no sick leave, no overtime pay, no benefits, no respect. The actual value of my services was closer to $500,000. And that didn't include the $28,000 in loans that had never been repaid. I printed the document and placed it in an envelope marked Carlos in my careful handwriting. Then I made one more call. Carmen, it's Margaret. I need you to drive down from Tampa first thing tomorrow morning. I'm leaving Carlos and Sophia's house tonight, and I need your help. My sister's voice was immediately concerned. Margaret, what happened? Are you okay? Did someone hurt you? I told her everything. The promotion celebration dinner, the cold pizza, the years of being treated like hired help, the financial abuse, the complete lack of respect or consideration, the way they had planned their celebration without me while using my own money to pay for it. By the time I finished, Carmen was crying. Margaret, I've been worried about you for years. Every time I called, you sounded so small, so diminished. This isn't the sister I know. This isn't the woman who raised Carlos as a single mother after Roberto's accident, who worked 2 jobs to put him through college, who built a successful catering business from nothing. Carmen was right. That Margaret, the strong, independent woman who had faced every challenge life threw at her with grace and determination, had disappeared somewhere along the way. It was time to find her again. The locksmith arrived at 9 p.m. sharp. I handed him the spare key Carlos had given me when I moved in. Change all the locks, I said, and install a security system with cameras. Ma'am, are you sure about this? This seems like a family dispute. Maybe you should wait until tomorrow when everyone's sober. I looked at this young man, probably around Carlos's age, and saw genuine concern in his eyes. Son, I said, sometimes waiting doesn't work. Sometimes people only learn when they face immediate consequences. I've been waiting for 3 years. Tonight, they learn. By 11 p.m., everything was ready. The locks were changed, the security system was installed, and I had packed everything that belonged to me. I sat in my empty room, surrounded by boxes, and waited. At 12:47 a.m., I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I could see Carlos's BMW weaving slightly as he parked. They were drunk. I heard voices outside, loud, slurred, celebratory. Sophia was laughing about something, her voice carrying in the quiet neighborhood. Carlos was shushing her, probably worried about waking the neighbors. Then I heard Carlos fumbling with his keys at the front door. That's weird, I heard him say. The key won't turn. You're drunk, Sophia giggled. Let me try. More fumbling, more frustrated attempts. I think someone changed the locks. That's impossible, Sophia's father said. Who would change the locks? I walked to the front door and opened it. There they stood on the doorstep. Carlos in his expensive suit, now wrinkled and stained with wine. Sophia in her cocktail dress, swaying slightly on her high heels. Sophia's parents looking confused and uncomfortable. Mommy? Carlos said, his voice slurred with alcohol and confusion. What? Why won't our key work? Because it's not your house anymore, I said calmly. It's mine, and you're not welcome here. I handed Carlos an envelope. This explains everything. Read it when you're sober. Then I closed the door and locked it. Through the window, I watched them stand there in shock, reading the note I had left them. You chose to celebrate your success without the person who helped you achieve it. You chose lobster and champagne while leaving me cold pizza. You chose to treat me like hired help instead of family. Now you can choose where to sleep tonight. It won't be here. Margaret Torres, former unpaid employee. I heard Carlos pounding on the door. Mommy, please, we can talk about this. But I was already walking to my bedroom, where I had one more surprise waiting for them. On the bed was a photo. Me, smiling and happy, standing in front of Sunset Gardens Senior Community with a Welcome Home Margaret banner held by a group of friendly-looking elderly people. I hadn't just left. I had built a new life, a better life, without them. The next morning, I woke up in my new condo at Sunset Gardens, sunlight streaming through windows that were actually mine. For the first time in 3 years, I had slept through the night without being woken up by someone needing something from me. My phone had 17 missed calls from Carlos and 12 text messages begging me to come home. I deleted them all. 3 months later, I was in my community garden, tending to my tomatoes and peppers under the warm Miami sun, when my phone rang. It was Carlos. I let it go to voicemail. It was the 31st call this week. My new life at Sunset Gardens was everything I had dreamed of and more. My condo was bright and cheerful, decorated with my own furniture and filled with plants that actually got sunlight. I had joined the book club, the gardening committee, the cooking club, and yes, even a salsa dancing class that met every Thursday evening. For the first time in years, I felt alive. The legal case had been settled quickly. Carlos and Sofia agreed to pay me $85,000 in compensation. Not the full amount I was owed, but enough to secure my financial independence for the rest of my life. They also had to write a public apology letter that was read at the senior center's monthly meeting. But my terms were clear. No contact until they could prove they understood what they had done wrong and were ready to treat me with the respect I deserved. My story had spread through the senior community like wildfire. I had become something of a legend, the grandmother who refused to be invisible, who stood up for herself and demanded better. I received letters from elderly people all over the country, thanking me for showing them that it was never too late to demand respect and dignity. Some of them shared their own stories of being taken for granted by their families. Others told me about the changes they had made in their own lives after hearing about mine. I had started a support group at Sunset Gardens called Visible Seniors, where we helped each other navigate difficult family relationships and build fulfilling, independent lives. Meanwhile, Carlos and Sofia's life had become much more complicated. Without me to manage their household and care for Miguel, they were overwhelmed and struggling in ways they had never imagined. Sofia had to hire a full-time nanny and housekeeper, which cost them more per month than Carlos's promotion had added to his salary. Carlos was constantly stressed, trying to balance his demanding new position with the responsibilities of actually parenting his son. Their marriage was suffering. Without me as a buffer, they were forced to confront the fact that they had built their comfortable life on the unpaid labor of someone they had taken completely for granted. The celebration dinner photos were still on Sofia's Instagram, but the comments had changed dramatically. Wasn't this the woman who abandoned her elderly mother-in-law? Imagine celebrating with lobster while your mother-in-law eats cold pizza. This is exactly why I don't trust people who post perfect family photos. I heard about this story on the news. Disgusting behavior. Sofia had eventually made her Instagram account private, but the damage to her reputation was done. 6 months after I left, on a Saturday morning, I heard a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Miguel standing there with Carlos. The little boy was crying, his face red and blotchy. I opened the door and knelt down to his level. "Abuela!" Miguel threw himself into my arms with the force of a small hurricane. "I missed you so much. Mommy and Daddy fight all the time now, and the new nanny doesn't make good food, and nobody reads me stories, and I don't like it." My heart broke and soared at the same time. I held my grandson tight, breathing in his familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. Carlos stood behind Miguel, his eyes red with tears and exhaustion. He looked like he had aged 5 years in 6 months, his hair graying at the temples, his face drawn with stress. "Mommy," he said, his voice cracking like a teenager's. We're so sorry. We didn't realize. We didn't understand what we had lost until it was gone." I stood up, still holding Miguel's hand, and looked at my son. Really looked at him. I could see the boy I had raised, the man I had been proud of, underneath the stress and regret. "What you had lost," I said quietly, "or what you had thrown away." Carlos flinched as if I had slapped him. "Both," he whispered. "Both." I invited them into my condo. Miguel immediately ran to the windows, amazed by the view of the bay and the boats in the marina. "Abuela, your house is so pretty, and it smells like flowers." "That's because Abuela has her own garden now," I told him. "Would you like to see it?" While Miguel explored my small balcony garden, exclaiming over the tomatoes and herbs with the wonder of a child who had been living in a sterile house for too long, Carlos and I sat in my living room and had the conversation we should have had years ago. "Mommy," Carlos began, his hands shaking as he spoke, "I know I can't undo what we did. I know saying, 'I'm sorry,' isn't enough, but I need you to know that losing you has been the worst thing that's ever happened to our family." I waited for him to continue, my face neutral. Sophia and I, we thought we were being generous by letting you live with us. We thought we were doing you a favor. We never realized that you were the one doing us the favor. You were holding our entire life together, and we treated you like hired help, I finished. Like someone whose feelings didn't matter. Carlos nodded, tears streaming down his face. Miguel cries for you every night. He asks why Abuela doesn't love him anymore. And I don't know what to tell him, because I know it's our fault that you left. Miguel, I called softly. He came running back inside and climbed onto my lap like he used to when he was smaller. Abuela, he said seriously, his little face grave. Mommy said you left because you don't love us anymore. But that's not true, is it? I cupped his little face in my hands, feeling the softness of his skin. Mi amor, Abuela loves you more than all the stars in the sky. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I needed to teach your parents how to love me better. Miguel nodded as if this made perfect sense to him, like when I have to go to time out to learn how to be nice. Exactly like that. Carlos was crying openly now, his shoulders shaking. Mommy, please, tell us what we need to do. Tell us how to fix this. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw genuine remorse and desperation. But I also knew that change doesn't happen overnight, and trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. Carlos, I said, if you want me back in your lives, it will be on different terms. I am not your housekeeper. I am not your unpaid nanny. I am your mother and Miguel's grandmother, and I deserve to be treated as such. Anything, Carlos said immediately. Anything you want. I want to be included in family decisions that affect me. I want to be invited to family celebrations. I want my own space and my own life. I want to be asked, not told. I want to be thanked, not taken for granted. Carlos nodded eagerly. Yes, of course. All of that. And, I continued, I want you to understand that I have my own life now. I have friends here, activities I enjoy, a community that values me. I'm not going to give that up to go back to being invisible in your house. We don't want you to be invisible, Carlos said. We want you to be part of our family, really part of it. I studied his face, looking for signs of sincerity. What I saw there gave me hope. All right, I said finally. We can try, but slowly and with clear boundaries. Over the next few months, we rebuilt our relationship step by step. Carlos and Sophia came to visit me at Sunset Gardens every Sunday for dinner. I would cook, but they would help and clean up afterward. Miguel would spend one afternoon a week with me, and I would take him on adventures around the community, to the library, the garden, the pool, showing him that there was a whole world beyond their house where his grandmother was valued and respected. Sophia, to her credit, made a genuine effort to change. She took cooking classes and learned to prepare simple meals without burning them. She started doing her own laundry and cleaning, discovering muscles she didn't know she had. Most importantly, she began to see me as a person with my own thoughts, feelings, and needs rather than a convenient appliance. The first time she asked for my opinion instead of just telling me what to do, I nearly cried. Margaret, she said one Sunday, using my name instead of just Mom for the first time in years. What do you think about Miguel's school situation? Should we consider switching him to public school to save money? It was a small thing, but it meant everything. Carlos learned to be a more hands-on father. Without me to rely on, he had been forced to develop a real relationship with Miguel. He learned about his son's favorite books, his fears about the dark, his dreams of becoming a marine biologist. He started reading bedtime stories and helping with homework, discovering that his son was funny and creative and needed more than just expensive toys. And Miguel? Miguel flourished with the attention from his parents and the special time with his grandmother. He loved showing his friends around Sunset Gardens, introducing me as my abuela, who has her own house and grows the best tomatoes in Miami and has lots of friends who think she's really cool. Today, a year after I left, our family looks very different. I split my time between my condo and their house. I have dinner with them twice a week, babysit Miguel once a week, and take him on special outings to museums, parks, and cultural events. But I also have my own life. I'm the president of the Sunset Gardens Garden Club. I volunteer at the local library reading to children in both English and Spanish, and I've even started dating a lovely widower named Eduardo who makes me laugh and treats me like a queen. Carlos and Sofia have learned to manage their own household. They share cooking duties, take turns with school pickups, and have family meetings where everyone's opinion, including mine when I'm there, is heard and valued. Most importantly, they've learned to say thank you and please, and we appreciate you. I still keep that photo of the cold pizza on my phone. Not as a reminder of the hurt, but as a reminder of my strength. It reminds me that I am never too old to demand better, never too family to set boundaries, and never too grateful to expect respect. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be invisible. And sometimes, walking away is the only way to teach people how to love you properly. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? What did you do about it? Your story might help someone else who's struggling with the same situation. And if you know someone who might need to hear Margaret's story, maybe an elderly parent or grandparent who's being taken for granted, please share this video. Sometimes we all need a reminder that it's never too late to demand the respect we deserve. At what point in this story did you realize Margaret had had enough? I'm curious to know when you would have said, no more. Remember, you are never too old to start over, you are never too family to set boundaries, and you are never too grateful to expect basic human dignity. Until next time, keep standing up for yourselves and keep making sure the people you love know how to love you back. Which city are you listening from today? I love seeing where you're tuning in from around the world. If this story gave you strength to set your own boundaries, a super thanks keeps these stories of resilience coming. Your support helps me share more stories of people who refuse to be invisible.